Hi guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am giving you some recommendations for books you can read during the Trans Rights Readathon. So if you are unaware, the Trans Rights Readathon has been running for a few years, and the purpose of this readathon is to uplift trans voices, trans characters, and support trans causes. I am terrible at readathons, but I always participate in the Trans Rights Readathon. I have since it began, and it's just one of my absolute favorite times of year. It starts on the 17th of March and goes until the 31st, which of course is the Trans Day of Visibility, and if you are interested in participating, I will put a bunch of information down below. So I thought that if anyone is interested in participating in this readathon but doesn't really know where to start, I would recommend some trans and non-binary authors to them. So I have a great big stack of books, some of which I have read for the Trans Rights Readathon in the past, and others are just books by trans or non-binary authors that I happen to particularly enjoy. And if you have any recommendations, go ahead and pop them in the comments down below. Just two really quick things before we get started. I will tolerate no hate comments here, so if you leave any transphobic comments, I will go ahead and donate money in your name to the trans charity of my choice. And second of all, some of these books are a little bit older and authors' names have changed, so the name that I say will be the name that they refer to now, just as a heads up. So in terms of books that I have read for the Trans Rights Readathon in the past, the very first one that I read was the only one that I managed to read for the very first readathon, and that was Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumsfit. This is a really brutal horror book, but it is fantastic. This is a sort of new take on a haunted house narrative. I don't want to say a huge amount about it beforehand, but basically we follow two women who used to be best friends. They had an encounter in a haunted house, and now they are not. One is a trans woman, and the other has kind of gone full TERF J.K. Rowling. This one was a really hard read, and it did kind of ruin all of my plans for the first readathon because it was really dark. It took me a long time to get through, but it is fabulous for the right reader. And she also has another book, which I believe is called Brainworms, which I have somewhere on my shelves. I cannot find it at the moment. Another horror book, which is a little bit more gentle, is Scapegracers by H.A. Clark. This is the start of the Scapegracers trilogy, and it is now a trilogy that is complete. I've read the first two. I have not read the last one yet. It's on my list. I would really like to get to it soon. This is a really wonderful YA series for anyone who loves the movie The Craft. It's kind of like an updated version of that, and it's fabulous. So we follow a character named Sideways who is a lesbian girl. She's a witch, she's in high school, and she ends up kind of falling in with these popular girls. Now, it's kind of the inversion of what you would normally think the popular girls are like. They end up actually becoming incredibly good friends, and they form a powerful coven. However, there are witch hunters who are after them. I just absolutely adore these books. I love any YA, especially that really tackles female friendships and those incredibly complex and like really heavy bonds that young girls can build. So this is a fabulous series. I would highly recommend it, and I need to read that last book. And the last horror book that I have to recommend for you guys is one that I read last year for the Trans Rights Readathon. I actually read a couple of this author's books. This is Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. The Trans Rights Readathon last year was like the year of Gailey for me because I read two of their books and I absolutely adored them, and I am now just a massive fan. This one definitely falls into the horror/thriller category. We have a young woman named Vera who has always gotten along really well with her father. She's very much a daddy's girl, but she has not gotten along historically with her mother. However, now her mother is dying, and she has one request for Vera, and that is to come home. So Vera returns to her childhood home, and let's say that she didn't necessarily have a happy, normal childhood there. And she is confronting her past, and she's confronting her mother, who she does not get on with. And there is an artist who is kind of taking the spare bits of Vera's childhood and using them in his art. And I don't want to say a huge amount more. There is a big spoiler, I think, on the market copy for this one. And you can kind of figure it out, but I really enjoyed the kind of revelation of what was going on with Vera's past. It's definitely a bit of a weird one, which I think is kind of Sarah Gailey's thing, but this one was fabulous. Would highly recommend. And speaking of Sarah Gailey, the other one of their books that I read last year for the readathon is The Echo Wife. This one is also a thriller, but falls more into sci-fi. In this book, we follow a woman named Evelyn Caldwell, and she is a brilliant scientist working on cloning research. And her deadbeat husband uses that research to make a clone of Evelyn named Martine, and he starts having an affair with her. Martine ends up on Evelyn's doorstep one day because the cheating bastard is dead, and they have to figure out what to do. But this was really fabulous. It's a really smart, thought-provoking, and sharp thriller. I loved Evelyn, who is a deeply unlikable but deeply relatable person. It's just a great read. I read both of these via audiobook, so I would definitely recommend picking them up that way if you're interested. If you're looking for something a little bit shorter, I would definitely recommend The Seep by Channa Porter. This is a little sci-fi novella. It's been a little while since I've read this one, but I remember it being fabulous and it definitely made an impression on me. In this book, we basically have the world's softest alien invasion. There is a alien presence that has come down and taken over, but we have our main character, who is a trans woman, who is resisting despite the fact that everyone around her is giving in. It's a bit of an odd book, but it is a really wonderful exploration of grief, and I'm very much looking forward to reading whatever she comes out with next. For a little bit more sci-fi, I have Goldilocks. This is by L.R. Lamb. This is a really fantastic sci-fi novel that was unfortunately a victim of the pandemic. It did come out in 2020, and I don't think it ever really got its due, but it's a really fabulous book, and it feels incredibly relatable today. This book is about a crew of all-female astronauts who are meant to be going on a mission to a planet in what's called the Goldilocks Zone, which is an area of space that is just right for human habitation. However, as women's rights are being restricted on Earth, the mission gets stripped from them, and they decide that they're basically going to hijack the ship and go anyway. I read this book when it came out back in 2020, and looking back on it, oh man, they really hit the nail on the head with some of the stuff that is happening in the background on Earth with sort of society, especially American society. And it's a really fabulous book, a really excellent kind of quiet sci-fi book, despite the description that I just read for you. I really adored this one. I would highly recommend it. Even if you're not necessarily hugely into sci-fi, I think that this would be a really good place to kind of dip your toe in. So now I have 3 fantasy books to recommend to you, and this one is one that I read for the Trans Rights Readathon maybe the year before last, because everyone told me it was gentle and lovely. It's not gentle, but it's fantastic. This is Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. This book was described to me as cozy sci-fi. It is not cozy sci-fi. This book is brutal. It's a brutal read, but it is fantastic. This book kind of blurs the lines between sci-fi and fantasy. So we have a woman on one side who has made a deal with the devil. However, in order to escape her damnation, she has to lure 7 other people into hell. So she is an incredible violinist, an incredible musician, and she trades her prodigy's souls for basically an escape from her own damnation. She has delivered 6 of them. She has her sights on the 7th, who is a young woman named Katrina, who's a young transgender runaway, and she has this kind of incredible raw talent and is taken in, and she is going to be the one who is this 7th damned soul. And then on the other side, we have a donut shop that is run by a retired spaceship captain, an alien from another planet, and her family, and these fates intertwine. And that last bit is lovely. The first bit is fucking brutal, man. Definitely go ahead and take a look at the content warnings for this one, because it is tough, but it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful read. I'm really glad that I read it. I don't think I was sufficiently prepared for it. What's really nice about this one is it's actually set in my hometown, like right where I grew up. They drive down the street that my high school was on. They go to like our mall, which sounds a lot fancier now than it was when I was growing up. So this is a really lovely book, would definitely recommend, but know what you're getting yourself into. The next fantasy book that I have is another kind of a hidden gem, because again, it was a 2020 release that got a little bit lost in the shuffle, but this is Phoenix Extravagant by Yoon Ha Lee. This is a book that I absolutely adore. It's a standalone fantasy book, and it's just marvelous. So in this book, we have a character named Jebi who is an artist. They want nothing to do with the current occupation that their country is under. They just want to paint and like survive. And they are jobless, but one day they end up getting a kind of commission from the ruling government to paint these magical sigils on the automatons that have helped this conquering government take over. When Jebi discovers the source of these magical pigments that they are using to paint these sigils, they end up being dragged into this conflict. And this book is fantastic. I am so sad that this feels like it never really found its place, because I think a lot of people would absolutely love it. It's a really fantastic investigation of colonialism and the destruction of a culture through art. And it also is incredibly funny. It has a pacifist mecha dragon, it's wonderful. I would highly recommend this. Just in general, it's just a wonderful book, and it's a standalone, which is even better. And last but not least, one of my favorite books of all time is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. This is now a complete trilogy. This is the first book, and this is the perfect thing to read for the Trans Rights Readathon. This is a modern set fantasy book, and we follow a coven of witches after this great war has taken place, and they're kind of cleaning everything up. This is a branch of the UK government that takes care of witchcraft and sort of keeping the order of things. And while it feels a lot like a kind of grown-up version of Harry Potter, the villain in this book is basically just J.K. Rowling, which is fabulous. The characters in this book are exquisite. I love the plot. I love the kind of world. It takes place in Manchester, which is really exciting. And I just cannot recommend this more highly. I do have slight series completion paralysis. I have not read the last book in this yet, but that's mostly because I'm scared of letting these characters go, because the first two in the series are just wonderful books. So those are some books that you can read for the Trans Rights Readathon, or all year round, because you don't need to wait for this readathon to read more books by trans and non-binary authors. I would love to hear in the comments below if you have any recommendations, and if you have read any of these books, let me know what you thought. That is it for now, and I will see you next time.